So if you like to close your eyes and get yourselves comfortable, we can start a little meditation for about 45 minutes. 45? No, that's a bit long, isn't it? 35. Or maybe 25? See what happens. Because we don't worry about time. We just live in this moment. So, and first of all, it does really help just to make sure your body's comfortable. And I just got into the habit these days of always doing a body contemplation when I start. It really helps. So I just make sure my legs are comfortable. I care about them. I care about my butt. And there was times I just wasn't really aware of the body, especially when you started sitting meditation. That's why I got sore, or the legs got numb, or you had to keep fidgeting, because I didn't put enough time and care into looking after my body at the beginning. It had all these wonderful side effects. You learn how to overcome colds and other sicknesses and diseases, because you became really aware of this thing you call your body. So I'm really aware of my legs and my butt, and now my back. It does need a good stretch. And often I do that. I stretch the back as much as I can, and then I let go. What do you mean, let go? You just allow it just to relax, you don't force it. And it becomes nice and loose and easy. Sometimes in order to relax, you go the opposite direction first of all. Stretch it, expand it, and then stop and let go. And the tension is released. Especially my back and my shoulders. Makes it really nice and loose. And my arms, hands. When I do that relaxation, I sometimes imagine that my hands are individual beings, as if they're their own persons. And I ask, left hand, right hand, how are you? Do you need to be adjusted? And they do. So I care for them. When I care for them, it's almost like they have gratitude. Thank you for looking after us. Now we'll look after you. And they don't cause me any problem. Same with my back, it's nice and easy. It's called relaxation, but people don't know how. It's mindfulness and kindness. Those two coming together, kindfulness. And I go up to my neck. It is for me anyway, hay fever season. See the farmers making hay down where I live in Serpentine. So my throat is always a bit itchy at this time. So what I do, I just be aware of it. I don't overreact to that feeling. And the opposite of overreacting is calming things down. Making peace, being kind, being gentle to my throat. It always works. The irritation gets less. And go up to the front of my face. learn how to relax the muscles around the eyes and the mouth. And that relaxes the whole face. And with it, many of the emotions of any negativity. And if you are aware enough of the muscles around the mouth, just turn the corners up a little bit. So you're smiling. That actually helps create a sense of joy and happiness in whatever you're doing. And it eases things. And then lastly, I look at the whole body, just sitting here. And often say this, see if you can be relaxed to the max. I mean really deep relaxation. You do that by just allowing the body to receive your kindness. Just like you have a child and you're settling the child in at night to go to sleep. You're settling your body. You know, some people say they find this amazing, but you can get your body so relaxed it feels good. I notice the joy of relaxation. Like you're in your bed, tucked in, comfortable, nothing to do or worry about. It feels good. And you may notice that insight happens. It's always there, but sometimes we don't notice it. That when the body is joyful, it feels comfortable, it's much easier to relax deeper. The level of comfort increases. And often I just get tempted just to stay just aware of the body, deeply relaxed. But I know you can go deeper. Start to become aware of the mind. Many people, what the heck is the mind? So let's use one important feature of the mind, one of its characteristics, peace. How peaceful are you right now? From 1 to 10. 10 is really agitated. 1 is deeply peaceful. You get to understand what peace is and how deep it can go and how pleasurable is peace of mind. And please listen to me, because as I am speaking, there are spaces between my words. In those spaces, what do you hear? What do you experience? In those spaces, you are in the present moment, and you are silent. This is what it feels like. Listening to the spaces between things, what surrounds things, the emptiness which connects things. It's really cool. And don't be afraid of feeling the world, of listening to nature, rather than thinking you know what it is and talking back to the world. Put aside all your knowledge and listen to silence. Become a friend of peace. Just learning how to appreciate stillness and silence inside. Let your mind get so close to stillness and peace. You appreciate the great rest and restoring of energies. Getting really close now to the end of this meditation period. How do you feel inside? After a while you get to appreciate, recognize and value not just the wisdom, the peace, the health of relaxation caused by stillness. So now, be ringing the gong 3 times. Please don't open your eyes until the last ringing of the gong fades away. There we go. Oh, it smells really nice. There's sometimes that I kind of wonder, why do people come to the Buddhist Society on a Friday evening? You know how long I've been doing this? Last 38 years in Perth. And I'm sure that all the stories, all the jokes, I'm sure that you've heard a lot of many times. But nevertheless, people still like coming here why? It's not just to become goody-goody or to learn great insights. Not the insights which you talk about at coffee tables, but it's the insights which change your life. Sometimes people come up to me and say that. They said, you've changed my life. And I ask them, for the better or for the worse? Please. And they would say, for the better, which is wonderful. Why? You know that there's many things in our life which we aim for, which we aspire for, which we are told will make us happy. What are they? Do they really work? That little things that, for a long time, that people ask me, there's a certain number of monks and nuns in our monasteries, and the monasteries are growing. So am I. But why do people go there and give us more food than we can eat? Even though I do try to do my best. Well, why is that? And a lot of times, it's not just because of advice you get afterwards. And I ask the simple people, why do you come? And they always say, peace, happiness, joy. And it got me really interested in people's values and what they really found important in their life. Why is it that people come and spend days just hanging out in a monastery? There were these people, I like telling stories, and these were people from over in Sydney, and this woman in Sydney came on one of my retreats years ago, and she told me that she had to beg and plead, and she said actually grovel from her boss. Oh, I can't afford to let you go for a whole 9 days, you can't go. But she said, I need the holiday, I need the break. So eventually the boss let her come to our retreat centre over in Janagrove, and she came, and she was so stressed out at first. But the advice, which is traditional Buddhist advice, is kindness is really important. And be kind to your body. And what that meant for her was learning how to relax and sleep. So how many of you don't know how to sleep? Simple thing which you should be able to do. But you're so afraid of getting up in the morning. We get up in time. What will happen? And I said, don't worry about anything. Because in the retreats which I teach, and just even here, if you want to relax, lay down, you fall asleep, no worries at all. Just go for it. In other words, you feel safe and natural. There are times when your body needs to sleep. And even just a few moments ago, I don't know if she's still here, but a common thing which happens in meditation, sometimes that people start crying when they meditate or listen to a talk. Tears start coming out. That's not against any precept. Is that illegal? Is that against the rules, against the laws? You start crying. The only reason they get a bit concerned is because it's strange. It's they haven't experienced it before. And I remember telling this lady a few minutes ago about this guy. He was an Australian, and he's about 30, and he came from South Australia, and he came on one of his first retreats, and during that retreat, he started crying his eyes out. What's going on? Is something going wrong? I'm crying. And I asked him, when was the last time you cried before today? And he went silent and said, I last cried when I was only about 12 or 13. That's when my father said, Australian boys don't cry. That's obvious, isn't it? You know, that if you suppress that crying, there's a lot of tears have to come out. You know, you build them up for a long time. And so he cried and cried and cried. What are the benefits of crying so much? And I mentioned, and it was actually true, he told me afterwards, because he was a single guy. He said he got lots and lots of females on that retreat were very interested in him. It's a very attractive thing to do, isn't it, to cry? So I don't need to go to wear fancy clothes. Learn how to cry. Nothing wrong with it. Of course, I've cried many, many times when I've hit my foot. No, there are times. Well, here we go, crying stories. And I don't know why, but the best tears, they come naturally, just you don't expect it. And one of the places which always made me cry, I don't know why, still don't know why, but I don't mind. You know, it's very pleasant to have a good cry. And that was when we used to go on these pilgrimages to India. And there's one of the places, you know, it's just outside of Benares, Varanasi, in the deer park. And just outside of the deer park, that's where, you know, the Buddha gave his first sermon. It's one of the important pilgrimage sites for Buddhists. But what I really wanted to do was actually go and see this, what they call the sun-out Buddha statue. It's got this big circle in the back of his head and the 5 little first disciples. And it was unearthed, you know, by the British when they were doing renovations or just looking after that site. And it was almost totally undamaged. But it's not like it was just totally undamaged. It had some really power to it. And so I've seen that on many, many photos and on book covers as one of the great works of art from India concerning the Buddha. And I knew it was in the museum there somewhere, but I never knew where. And there was no guidebooks and no guides, so when I got into that museum just outside Sanat in India, I was just exploring, trying to find out where the heck is this. And it was just at the end of a corridor, and I just was wondering, just where is this? Turned the corner and saw it at the end of the corridor. And my eyes just burst out, weeping. Couldn't stop myself. And it's, you know, it is a very beautiful, it's acknowledged to be one of the most beautiful statues of a Buddha. For some reason or another, it just brings out a sense of peace, kindness, and it is, you know, before we knew about the different forms of gender, that was just in between. It wasn't male, it wasn't female. Look at its face. It, you know, has something which embraces all genders. And it's so beautifully done. And I was a Buddhist, okay, so it might sound biased, but I couldn't help as a man. I always had my robes on, but still as a male just bursting out crying. And the thing was with being a monk, trained for many years, there's no restraining that, because it was a beautiful emotion, a very positive emotion. And of course, once I did that once, the next time I went there with a group of people, I knew exactly where it was, and this time I went I thought I'd restrain myself. I'm not going to show myself up and cry. What's wrong with crying? Anyway, I went there and I thought, no, I'm not going to cry this time. I've got lots of people with me. And it happened a second time. As you get wiser and wiser, you just let these things happen. And the third time that happened, another pilgrimage. You know what happened then? I was with a lot of people, and I said, look, I got my tissue papers with me this time, my hankies. I don't care, you're crying, why not? Sometimes there's so many rules and regulations about emotions in our world, things we're not allowed to do, that really stuffs up just our reactions to how we feel. And especially the positive emotions, the beautiful emotions. And that third time, I knew what was going to happen. And I turned the corner. I told everybody, look, please excuse me if I cry my eyes out, because I don't know, it just affects me. And I turned the corner, and I was ready, tissues at the hand. And then there was renovations going on. The statue was covered with a big cloth. As a painter had a big ladder, was painting the ceiling above it. And honestly, I thought, just you go all the way to India from Perth, and and that was supposed to be the highlight, for me anyway, of the trip, quite frankly. And you got there and you couldn't see it. And the painter looked at me. I don't know how he did this, but he obviously read my mind. And he took the cover off the Buddha statue. That's beautiful. And I remember that. And so I told him, some of the things which happen in meditation, you're freeing your emotions. Your positive ones. Sometimes people think that all you do in sort of this place or in Bodhinyana or Dhammaloka or whatever is you get rid of the negative emotions, the ones which cause you real trouble, like anger or fear or feelings of guilt or blaming others and feeling, oh, what's the point? Now, a lot of times people just want to know the theories, the words, so they can create a coherent theory about the meaning of life. But instead of actually having those words, just having the feelings of what the meaning of life is, what the truth is. And that truth which you know in your heart rather than in your head, that is actually something you can't argue with anybody else. It's not something you can speak, but something you can feel. And I'm saying that as a former theoretical physicist. That's not emotional at all, that path. I mean, you might say this later on, but it's intellectual stuff. And to be able to learn how to feel, and the power that feeling gives you, and is that so much closer to truth and to peace. What is peace anyway? Peace is not a theory, it's what you feel. Silence. Wow. These are what we call part of the positive emotional world. And so instead of actually having theories and arguments and logical explanations, which some people do, I always prefer just feeling. Again, because I was a theoretical physicist, I mentioned this to someone the other day, that I did actually learn, because I was also part of the Astronomical Society in Cambridge, and there, you learned just the names of the stars and the constellations, exactly what they were. What is a star? What is, Andromeda? What is Sirius? And all of those things which it was just a name, it was just a beautiful light in the sky. When I used to see those things, I had all these ideas of what they really are because of their names. And that made me think. And that made me blind to what they truly are and just how beautiful they are. And it's one of the reasons why, and I don't know how many people are going to be going on the retreat next week, which I'm leading, always gets packed out. But there's always a space for me. I'm teaching it. But I ask people, at night time, especially if there's a dry night, because we've still got rain about, and it's warm, just lay on these concrete stupas, they call them. Lay on your back. It's warm. Those stones have soaked up the sun all day. You lay on your back and just gaze at the Milky Way. Because it's dark there, there's very little light pollution. You can see those Milky Way stars are so beautifully. They're bright. You just allow your eyes just to soak them in. And you don't try and think out what they mean. You just recognize how you feel. Simple, peaceful, and beautiful. You can allow your emotional world to really grow. And you become skilled in what these days they call emotional intelligence. You know, those of you who have kids and they're doing year 12 exams this week or next week or whenever it's supposed to be, just, what are you examining them on? Sometimes I feel that we've missed a lot. I know this because I used to be a school teacher for 1 year. I was a school teacher, and I felt guilty about being a school teacher. It's one of the reasons I go off and become a monk. What was I guilty about? Just the way we try and assess knowledge by giving an exam. When you assess knowledge by giving an exam, what are you really assessing? Just your skill at answering questions. And I'm not sure when I said this recently, but I remember just trying to pass. I could see the student next to me, when I was a student myself, they didn't know the answer to a maths question. So I gave them the answer. What's wrong with that? Thank you for laughing. In school, that's called cheating. Where I came from, I know what I thought, and that's just kindness. That's more important than spending kindness with your friends. Just give them the answer so they can get... Why not? It's a bit rebellious, but thinking outside of the box. Isn't that more wonderful? But of course you get into trouble for it. Because my teachers didn't understand. So when I did, oh great, people laugh at silly jokes. If you really want to laugh, okay. There was a nice joke this morning, and that was from a lawyer. And that lawyer told this joke, and he said, "Why don't sharks bite lawyers?" It's a lawyer himself. Why don't sharks bite lawyers? And the answer is professional courtesy. Well, that really is a joke. That was really great. It's nice to know that lawyers have sense of humour. But he's our lawyer. He must have got it from the president. So, he's a really nice man. But learning how to break down those barriers and allow those emotions to come up, there's a lot of times I get inspired. And sometimes I was just giving a series of talks. It was like a little retreat for our Thai community. That's what it's supposed to be for. Only for 3 days at Jhana Grove last week. And I had one of our lovely bhikkhunis, Venerable Munisara, because she's from Thailand, to get her to do the translation for me. And you know, I must be getting pretty stupid in my old age, because I would actually give a few words of teachings on the Eightfold Path, and then she would translate. And when I heard what she said about how she translated it, I thought, this is some of the most inspiring Dhamma I've heard in Thai language since Ajahn Chah. And then I thought, all she's doing is translating what I just said. You proud, egotistic Ajahn Brahm. And I only noticed it afterwards. I actually felt that way because I forgot what I'd said a few minutes earlier. living in the present moment, that's what it does to you. But it was just, so what? To actually enjoy something, what's wrong with that? Now I mention that because it's like emotional intelligence and what you need to do. Why do people love coming here? Hopefully, it may be not what you learn, but how you feel, and how that emotional intelligence is enhanced and encouraged, and how you feel safe to do things like crying, or laughing, or smiling. You feel good. There's so many places where you're not allowed, where you feel guilty, or you feel, what do people think of me? What do people think of me dressed like this? I have great fun in monks' robes. Like, it was last week. Last week, I was down in Margaret River giving some talks. And of course, last Sunday night was Halloween's. And I remembered I told a story because it's Halloween's, why not? Tell weird stories. And this was a weird story of that when I was visiting my brother. I didn't tell this 2 weeks ago, did I? Anyway, here we go. When I was visiting my brother in London, and after having lunch with him, then he put me on the underground train to go to my next appointment. He paid the fare, gave me the ticket, because I don't have any money. And so paid the ticket and sent me to the London Buddhist Society, just next to Victoria. And when I got on that train, it was weird. I was the first one in my carriage, but then these vampires came on. They were vampires. Really, I'm not exaggerating. About 5 or 6 of them with long teeth and blood and just really weird clothing on. And after they came on, then came a few witches, a few ghosts. And then, what's going on? And then I remembered, because it was Halloween's night. It was quite ordinary. But then I started thinking, for the first time riding the underground trains dressed as a monk in London, the first time I never felt odd wearing my robes. And I think many of them thought, now what are you dressed up as? I'm a monk. And I really enjoyed that. And it's one of the other reasons why. These are little ways which you can spread spirituality in a world, spread kindness. And I remember just another occasion there in London on the underground trains, that I was sitting there and just people come up to you and ask you, who are you, what are you doing? Because you do stand out. And this lady came up to me and sat next to me and said, that's the when she said, are you a Buddhist monk? And said, yes. Said, a real one? Because I don't know why people say that. They said, yeah. What is a Buddhist monk? You can dress up as one. You can actually even be ordained as one. What's a real Buddhist monk? Someone who is relaxed and can actually teach. How do you teach in the London Underground train? What are you teaching? If you wanted to teach Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, Dependent Origination, it's best to get a book. But what's the heart of this teaching? And so, she was asking about all sorts of stuff, and one of the things she asked about was reincarnation. It's an important thing to understand, and what actually it is, and why it is, and how it works. Because that's your next life. That's where you come from. So anyway, I did tell her an anecdote because I just taught a retreat earlier here in Perth and then went over to England to help out over there. And I said this fellow who comes here, he was actually from Italian background. It's important that it's great over here where people from all sorts of different backgrounds all over the place. Even once, and she's not here now, but she used to work for the KGB in the Prague office years ago. And she was great to talk to because she told all these amazing stories and behind the Iron Curtain and being in the KGB and as some sort of secretary. And she said that she got lots of stories from her station boss as well. The station boss, this was in Czechoslovakia in those days, and in Prague. And a station boss had some duty to do in Moscow and was actually driving back into Prague. And there was this hitchhiker who just, and the station officer gave him a lift. And this hitchhiker, a bit of a hippie, just talking about all sorts of nonsense. And then started talking about how much he wanted freedom for his country. And he didn't know who he was talking to. The head of the KGB in Prague. And the head of the KGB was leading him on. And when they got to the destination, the head of the KGB said, there's your destination over there, all the best, have a wonderful day. I'll just let you know that I'm the boss of the Prague office of the KGB. He did that as a joke. And I thought, it's wonderful that people in all parts of life have a sense of humour. But anyway, I haven't seen her for a while, maybe because I've told all her secrets. She's maybe been taken back. But anyway, that she was, I was saying about this Italian man, and he had some really interesting experiences in meditation, like many people do. Not just crying, but he had these visions in his mind. I don't know if you've ever had those. But these were weird visions. The first time, because he came and talked to him about them afterwards, he said, I was just meditating, getting really peaceful, and it was like I saw myself as a piece of spaghetti. And I was telling this, with all seriousness, he actually did say this in the underground train. It's weird, but don't just discriminate against people because they have weird ideas. There's something in that. Don't just push it aside. And the second time he had his vision, it was a piece of macaroni. And I got it straight away. He said he was recollecting his past lives. Now, that was true. I said that. I did make up these stories in an underground train in London, which was 3/4 full. I grew up in London. I know those underground trains. And usually, when I was a young man, people were always reading the newspapers. They would never, ever make eye contact in the London train. You never do that. And now, they don't read newspapers. They've got all their text machines, whatever they call them. But it was great. As soon as I said that, everybody laughed. And the whole carriage, well, half the carriage were laughing. The other half were groaning. They were all listening. That was the amazing thing. And the nice thing is that, you can talk about reincarnation or something, but isn't it more important, especially as an amazing achievement, one of my best achievements, getting people's attention in a morning journey to work on a London Underground train and getting people to laugh. And also they get very interested in Buddhism. That's one of the reasons why I became a Buddhist. That's why I went to temples. Is because you come here, it's just not more information you're getting. You're getting something much deeper, more powerful. You know, how not to be afraid to feel and to laugh and be silly sometimes. Sometimes, I don't know why people are always so serious. No, honestly. Yeah, I mean, we've got all these regulations and rules, what we're supposed to do, what we're not supposed to do. But you know, this is what I learned from traditional Buddhism in Thailand. When you break a rule and may do something stupid, your teachers always find it so incredibly funny, and they laugh their heads off. Please excuse me, because everybody does stupid things. But this occasion, I was in this big conference. It was in Cambodia. This was years ago. And it was a really big conference, and I was representing Australia, so I was sitting in the front row, and I was sitting next to this Tibetan monk who couldn't understand any English, but he was a very nice fellow. And I was sitting next to him, and then this monk came up. Please excuse me, he was Sri Lankan, that's pretty obvious. And then he started talking in Sinhalese, really loudly and very fast. And he wouldn't shut up. And then this Tibetan monk started laughing. I said, you can't do that, that's just impolite. And that just encouraged him even more. And honestly, this Tibetan monk, he actually fell off his chair and he was rolling on the ground. And that was so funny, really entertaining. If you've ever been to conferences, sometimes they're so boring. And that was a highlight which I remembered so well. I also remember when this American nun, most of Sri Lankans are great. Most of the Americans are great. But this nun, she was asked to give a talk about something. But you only had about 10 minutes, to give the talk. Lots of people were scheduled there. And so what she did, she walked to the lectern really mindfully and very slowly. She could notice every movement of her foot as it moved up and as it went down. And then the next leg as it moved up and went forward and went down. Incredibly mindful. And by the time she got to the lectern, which was not all that far away, the MC said, "Time's up." So what do you do with things like that? Do you really want to go to a lecture where you learn lots of information which doesn't really solve the real problems of life? Or do you want to feel life and feel its solutions and actually understand emotional wisdom? Emotional wisdom, that's, many Thai people know this because I've told them so many times that when I was learning Thai, how do you learn a foreign language like that? Because sometimes people are so afraid of making mistakes. But as for me, every time I made a mistake, my teacher, who I really respected and loved, he just laughed. Come on, give us another mistake. And the mistake I made, of course, was a simple translation mistake. I needed some soap. I had to ask that from Ajahn Chah. You know, there was a time when we ran out of soap. It was a very simple place. We hardly had anything. But we didn't need to actually ask the lay people for soap. All we did was just wash in water for a few days. And this was the northeast, the hot season. We sweated a lot, we worked a lot. And the villagers, you can actually see them when we came on Armstrong, they had much more social distancing from us. And they soon worked out we were very smelly monks. And we never went without soap after that time. But when I went to ask Ajahn Chah for some soap, the word for soap in Thai is sabu. I said sapo. It's only a tiny mistake, sabu to sapo. And trouble was, sabu means soap, sapo means pineapple. So you can imagine, Ajahn Chah heard me say, I needed some pineapple. And then he asked, what do you need pineapple for? And I said, to wash. And my teacher never let me forget that. He said, oh, they're very advanced in England, you know. In England, they don't wash with soap, they wash with pineapples. We should try that, you know. Maybe much better. And so that served two purposes. Number one, I learned the right word for soap in Thai. And also, I never felt embarrassed. I felt, wow, isn't that wonderful? I've made my teacher's day. And so a lot of times when you do make mistakes like that, you just... Emotional intelligence means you admit it, you have fun, that you're not perfect, you make mistakes. That's one of the big mistakes which I made. You know, I think what happened, Ajahn, former monk Ajahn Chakra disrobed, so I took over. So, this I'm going to really teach really properly. And so this one day I was just walking outside our hall, and I saw in the grass there was a hammer. Someone had left a hammer, just an ordinary hammer, not a very expensive one, but still a hammer out in the grass, had not put it away, and it was getting rusty. And I thought, we're monks. People come and look after us, and very often people offer things to us. We can't just ignore and give no value to the things which people give us. If someone gives us a hammer, we should look after it, put it away after it's used, clean it, put it in the right place so we can use it again. What would the donor think? If they gave a hammer and we found it as little stupid monks and left it in the grass to go mouldy and go... and I thought, that's not on. So what I did, I called a meeting. And you see how I talk these days. In those days, I thought, wow, that's not the way to solve this problem. You really got to... Oops. Got to lay down the law. So, like all the monks in there, and all the Anagarikas, novices, everybody in there, and I said, so this is not how we should live. Not respecting donations. You don't know maybe just how many of the people who come here or come to Nolamara temple, it's very tough for them, and they get some faith and some inspiration. They go and give a hammer to you and you just leave it out in the forest, and it's just not on that you leave it there without putting away. It's disrespectful to the people who look after us. They work really hard. I don't know how much a hammer costs, but it may be some really poor person, it may be their own hammer, their best hammer, they give it to us, and you do this with it. That's just not respectful. You're monks, yes, but you should respect the people who look after you. And all those monks, they were silent. No one was sleeping. They were sitting up perfectly straight. And I realized I'd really told them off. I said, which one of you was it? Not one of them owned up. Not one of them. And that really disappointed me. I thought, I'm not going to kill you. Just own up, come on. And I ended the meeting, and I walked out, really disappointed. I kind of lost my faith, in sort of the monks I was living with. That some idiot monk had left that hammer outside and was not going to admit their faults. Have you ever had that in maybe the place you work or in your family? Somebody does something wrong. Why didn't you admit it? And as I walked out the hall feeling very kind of depressed, then I realized why none of those monks had confessed. I'd realized a couple of days ago I was using that hammer and I really to put it away. And I realized that's why the monks hadn't confessed. They hadn't done it, I'd done it. I'd totally forgotten about it. Have you ever had that? You just totally, it just falls out of your memory. So I went back in the hall. I said, "Can you please sit down for a few more minutes?" And they were all just, "What's he going to do now?" And I told her, "Yeah, it was me. I'm really sorry. I think, forgive me." And that's really great an emotional learning experience for me. Because it made you not so critical of others. Are you critical of others when they make a mistake? When I admit the mistakes I make, it makes the monks much more relaxed. Which means they don't make as many mistakes. Weird, isn't it? If you're afraid of making mistakes, it's the tension, the tightness. That actually means you make more mistakes. We know how to relax and be at ease and be peaceful. Then you usually do really well. And that's a very powerful emotional teaching. That is the emotional teaching which I always give kids who are doing year 12 exams. Big exam next week. Well, that's the key to failing, when you're just really tense. And just like when you go to any sort of test or interview with somebody, with a new job or something, am I going to get this job? When you really relax. Look, if you were a boss, who would you like to work for you? Someone who's relaxed, competent, and fun to be with. Even just the admin person. It's not just whether they can do the job, they can easily learn to do the job afterwards. But are they just really nice to be with? Well, that's something which many people understand is really important. Makes it competent. So politics in offices, politics in companies is not there because people care for one another. They're easy to be with. And that means that we're learning something very powerful here. Not only that, we learn how to meditate. If you make a mistake, just admit it. I've had some really, really weird mind states. Those weird mind states when you meditate, those are the ones I always like telling people about. Like the time when I was meditating. It was only about 3 or 4 years ago. The monks know this story. In my cave. Really peaceful. Just everything slowing down. And just the breath getting so peaceful. Even the breath, you couldn't even discern it. And the next thing which comes up is called these nimittas. If anyone wants to look at this in the books, the Anapanasati Sutta, this is stage 9, 10, 11 of the Anapanasati Sutta. You're seeing the mind released from the body, and it usually appears to many people like myself, these beautiful lights in the mind. And these lights were not just like, it was actually a yellow color, but not like any yellow you can see in the world. It was like purified, really intense, lovely yellow. Nothing like you can see in the world. It was a blue color, it's just so deeply blue. No paint in the world is like that. And I saw this yellow, and it had a form. When I noticed the form of this yellow nimitta, I noticed it was in the form of Garfield, the cat. I was reading too many comics. And I burst out laughing, and that was the end of that meditation. It's just what had influenced me when I'd seen it, about an hour or two before. Those are the sorts of things when you confess those things. I learn about them and other people learn about them. You're not afraid of them. These are ordinary things which happen. You admit them, you learn from them, and you grow from them. That's one of the reasons why people like coming here. Anyway, that executive, going back to that story, I love actually just going off on tangents all over the place, but I usually come back to where I started somewhere or other. And that executive came on the retreat, had to beg and grovel, she said. That's the word she used. But after the retreat was finished, she was really high, really peaceful. And sometimes you don't notice that yourself. But other people do. So when she went back to Sydney and went back to work, and she sent me this lovely email, an email about what happened when she went to see her boss. "Oh, I'm glad you're back," but the boss, as soon as the boss looked at her, she said, "What drug is Ajahn Brahm giving you in Perth? I don't care what it is, it might be illegal, maybe not. Whatever it is, make sure you bring me back some next time." Because she was so peaceful and so competent and happy. And the boss saw that straight away, and he thought, that's only drugs. Of course, there's no drugs at all. We don't need drugs. We can be happy without drugs, which is wonderful, because they can... Every now and again, I think the police over in Perth know us, because if ever you get a random breath testing, whoever's driving the car, it's not important. They see me sitting next to them. They say, "Okay, carry on, sir." Waste of time trying to... We look happy, yes. Relaxed and peaceful. But just because of the nature of the mind. When you allow that nature to be, why are you going to be worrying about anything? Even, 25 years ago? Was it 30 years ago? We had this big bushfire over in our monastery. A crown fire. It was the hottest day ever recorded in Perth. 46.6 degrees or something. And that is now the second hottest, because about a month later it was even hotter than that. And that was before the fire came. A big crown fire. The trees exploding. Boom! And right in the middle of it, it's amazing. I really thought that the whole monastery would be immolated. There was no escape from fires like that, because if you ever see a big crown fire, the trees actually explode. Because what happens, it's so hot. The eucalypt trees, they emit all their oil, and it all vaporizes, and just around the tree is this explosive mixture of oil and air. And so when it does set alight, it doesn't just burn, it explodes. Boom! It's very exciting. Because I say we don't get much excitement in monasteries. But anyway, this is honest. We were doing all the right things. And so, okay, when the fire front comes through, let's just take shelter in the main hall. And then when it passes through, we can go out, and then had all the cars lined up there already. And it was a fire officer, honestly, who just panicked. He put his head through the door and said, "Get out now!" So we evacuated. That was good, because it had another nice little story to it, because we went to the fire evacuation centre, just on the Southwest Highway, and of course, the TV crews were there. So they interviewed me. I said, "What was it like? Were you scared? Losing all your life, everything else?" "Oh, no, it's just the fire came this way, the fire came that way." You've been around me long enough. And that's true. And what happened next? The person who interviewed, Channel 7 or Channel 9, I forget which one it was. But anyway, they called me up about a couple of weeks later. Oh, also we got the psychology department, I think, of Curtin University came to do an interview to see how stressed I was afterwards. Do you actually, wake up in the middle of the night afraid of fires? No? Don't you have these flashbacks of exploding trees? No? They were really disappointed. What they did was just, it's a waste of time interviewing these monks. And honestly, I'm not making that up. And anyway, this lady called, and she said, "Look, I can't get you out of my head. Because all the other times we do disasters, which these people on TV's evening news often do," said that people are always just frantic. And just, they're really, but you're not. What have you been doing? So we're meditating. This is what we do here. And they said, "I thought that. Can you please, I'm now working in another part of whatever channel it was on the TV in Perth. And can you come on to do an interview on the TV?" So, well, what program is it? And it was like, I think it was Hitchens or something. Was it Rolf? No, who was it? But apparently he was a very controversial guy. And apparently... Is that it? Hitchens? Darren Hinch, that's it, Darren Hinch. He was very controversial, and he always sort of puts people down. And so I said, "Well, I don't know, I'll just ask our committee." And the committee said, "No, don't go anywhere near Darren Hinch. He will grind you down to mincemeat. He will just, you'll explode like one of those trees." And I really wanted to go. They wouldn't let me. But anyway, what was happening there, it just shows that some of the emotional strength you get from this sort of practices here, you see the world in a different way. You feel it in a different way. And it does mean that you become enhanced emotionally. You can take so much more. And you can laugh more. And you go to bed at night and fall fast asleep. And you can be more peaceful. And when it comes to doing the tests of life, whatever that is, whether it's your own just finding out what the results of the biopsy are. Am I going to live? Am I going to die? I will tell you, you're going to die. Some people die shortly, some people die in the next 20 years, some in the next 40 years. We have a different response. And you know that what that does, that actually encourages people not to be so afraid. A lot of time it's the fear which is the worst part of those test results. Can't stop talking about one of my favourite Sri Lankan monks. He passed away now, but when he was he was diagnosed with cancer. And when the verdict came, look, there's nothing more we can do. You're really terminal. And that was Dr. K.C. Dhammananda. And I know his doctor. And I always I don't want to lie to anybody. And sometimes I don't ever, intentionally lie, but sometimes you get the wrong information. So I want to make sure, first of all. So I asked the doctor, was this true? And I said, yeah, absolutely. I was his doctor. This is what he said. As soon as he heard he's only got about a week or 2 weeks to live, he burst out laughing. It's the only patient that he's ever had who loves laughing when he was diagnosed as terminal. He's going to die soon. No more worries anymore. No more worries about doing more tests or more injections or more anything else. Free at last. So, if someone told you you're going to die in a short time, how would you react? Yay! No, I'm serious here, it's not a joke. All the problems and troubles of your life. It's not your fault, it's not, you can't do anything about it, it's terminal. So you can let go. If you were going to retire in a week's time, if you were going to get what you really want in life, you don't have to work ever again. Have no more arguments with your parents. No more having to come to the Buddhist Society with all these committee meetings. Yay! Freedom at last. Why are people afraid of dying? Because they don't know what it is. They don't know what happens afterwards, that's all. It's a fear of the unknown. So here, when you get emotional intelligence, you can handle anything. I really mean that. Nothing is worth being afraid of. Because you're emotionally strong. The positive emotions totally overpower the negative ones. When you realize you've got nothing to lose. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay. As usual, I make this up as I go along. I did have another kind of plan, I never got around to it, sorry. Anyway, let's get some questions now. Questions, comments and complaints. Okay, oh my goodness me. Oh, this is great. You know, sometimes you don't realize just how far these talks go. This is from Hadil Nasser from Palestine. How to remain present and deal with all the difficult emotions that arise from working a boring job I don't like, with people that trigger my anxiety. I find it hard to. And many people think being a Buddhist monk should be pretty boring. Is it boring being a monk? Being a nun? Is it boring being president of the BSWA, being operations manager? Something new comes up every day. Something weird comes up. So, you're working a boring job. You make it interesting. Like sometimes, you know, when people get bored doing breath meditation, you know, just breathing in, breathing out, I tell them to learn how to do backwards breath meditation. It's not a joke. Have you ever done backwards breath meditation before? I now describe it, how it's done. It is, if you want to participate, just close your eyes, breathe in and out 3 times, and then open your eyes. Just 3 breaths. And after you've opened your eyes, if you haven't heard this before, I guarantee that you'd have breathed in first of all, then out. In, out, in, out. We always do it that way. Now, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and breathe out first, and then in. Out, in, out, in, out, in. So try that. Out first. It's actually different. It feels different. That's backwards breath meditation. What you're doing there is you're being innovative and making something which is boring really fascinating and interesting. So don't just sit there and bore yourself. You can make anything interesting. So anyway, people trigger your anxiety. That's the problem. You don't have anxiety, and somebody sometimes triggers it. It's just one way of looking at life. Now, there are some anxieties which you should be anxious about. If they're coming with a gun, then sure. But most of anxiety is not necessary. You know, we just go off into the future with a negative mind state. Instead, go into the future with a positive mind state, or even better, staying in the present moment. Your future is being made right now. Always remember that. So if you want a happy, non-anxious future, the best possible future you have, spend more time in the present moment and don't allow your mind to just wander off into the future where anxiety can happen. Well, Amir Rastgu, Iranian expat in Bangkok. I was skeptical about manifestation, but recently it has worked for me. Why? How does manifestation work? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. I don't know what's being manifest, what is actually coming into existence. If it's something into the mind is incredibly powerful. It can create almost anything. And sometimes even physical manifestations, they're much more weird, but sometimes they happen too. I was a theoretical physicist, now a monk. There's not much difference between the two. You're investigating. And what actually happens, what you see, what's real. So what you see, what you feel, and your mind is clear, that is real. And sometimes weird stuff sometimes does happen in this world. And sometimes people say, I don't believe you. It's because, not that it didn't happen, because it was too challenging for people to accept. So, I don't know what has been manifest, but the whole job of that is just to challenge some of the way we look at life and believe in life. A common thing, I'll go on this one again, is people with tumours. They can disappear within a day or two. It's weird. Those are real things. It's the other way, things disappearing, non-manifesting. So this is something which happens. It's rare, but just because it's rare doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Why? And that's actually, a lot of times it doesn't happen because people just deny it, and they don't allow it to happen. And again, I always mention him, one of my best friends, Bernard Carr, close associate of Stephen Hawking's. He was also, Bernard was Professor of Theoretical Physics at London University. He's also President of the Psychic Research Society. So he does all these experiments as well. And of course, we used to do this together when we were students. Why not? If you really want to find out the nature of existence, and you've been trained as how to be an objective researcher, why not? Find out interesting stuff. This is Rose from Poland, Rosa Melissa Grebiczka. I have a question about euthanasia or terminally sick animals. What is the right thing to do, or terminally sick animals? That's always a problem, because sometimes people think that their religion says, you shouldn't kill. Would you like to kill your lovely pet dog? Of course not. But then again, you've got to be compassionate and kind. So there seems to be a moral dilemma there. But there is not really a moral dilemma if you know what to do. There's one of our members here years ago. She had this beautiful dog. And the dog had cancer. And the dog got such excellent care. Expensive, but this girl didn't mind sort of spending money on her dog. And of course, it took her to the vet, and the vet said, can't do anything more. Your dog's in pain. Can I sort of euthanize it? I mean, kill it, yeah. And the woman, she'd been here so many times. She was actually one of our committee members years ago. And so he said, can I please just have a few minutes with my dog? And then after spending a few minutes with the dog, she went back to the vet and said, no, I won't allow you to euthanize the dog. And the vet was shouted at her and scolded her. You Buddhists are just so selfish about your own religious views, not caring about the dog. But she stood her ground and said, I'm taking it home. Now what had happened, she'd heard what we taught here so many times, that she took that dog in her arms in a quiet space, looked her dog in the eyes, and asked the dog, do you want to die? Have you had enough? It's not my decision, it's yours. And whatever you tell me, I'll tell the vet. It's wrong to kill another being. But it's okay to ask them what they want to do and tell that to the vet. She said, I got the message back from the dog. It's your dog, your cat, you've been with them, you love them. If you ask the question, you feel what the answer is. It was very clear, no, I don't want to die. And she took the scolding from the vet, but 6 months later, she took the dog back to the vet. It was in full remission, all by itself. And the vet said, oh, you Buddhists are so wise and kind. Total opposite. And that's what you should do. If you have a dog or a cat or any other animal you love, ask it. You shouldn't control your dog or cat, you love it. And love is beyond control. It's a totally different emotion. You ask it and you get some amazing ideas. Amazing actual responses. So that's how to do that, and you feel much better when you do that. Sometimes you take the cat or the dog, the cat's had enough, and you hug that cat, hug the dog, and the vet injects it. You spend those last few minutes with your lovely dog. Okay, from DY from USA. Dear Ajahn, my father, a devotee Buddhist, the most generous, kindest person, passed away from COVID almost 3 months ago. Miss him so much. What is the best to do for 3 months death anniversary? 3 months death anniversary, remember that's not the only person who's died in your family, won't be the only person who will die. And understand that we will all sort of separate from one another. It's one of the sayings we will chant every evening in Thailand. All that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will one day become separated from me. So what does that mean? Is that negative? It means that what's with you right now, you value much more. As Ajahn would say, oh, this is glass, good. A glass is cracked. Can you see the crack? No. Because it's microscopic, but one day this crack will open up, someone will kick it, drop it, and it will break. It's a crack of impermanence, not here forever. Because I see this and I remember this is how I've been taught and trained, glass is crackable. That's why I care for it. If this was plastic, or paper or something, especially plastic, I wouldn't need to care for this, would I? Because, it would just be unbreakable. Who are you? Are you breakable, or are you like plastic, lasting forever? Your parents, your loved ones, your children, your friends, your monks and nuns. We are also got cracks in us. In other words, we realize that each one of us, we're temporarily together, not forever. And one day we will die. We become separated from one another. That means we have to care for one another. If you're plastic, you wouldn't need to care. It's the impermanence means it's more important that we care. From Germany, I am oversensitive and cry a lot, often for no reason, always, if I see other people's pain and also joy. How can I stay calm and peaceful without losing the sensitivity? What do you want to stay peaceful for? Cry. I know why people don't like crying. What's wrong with it? It's not against any precept, it's not against any law. So go for the crying. What is nice not to do is just see other people's pain and also joy. If you really want to, see if you can... no, that's not a good idea. Well, you will find that if you are crying when people are in pain, you're not really able to help them that much. If you cry when people are joyful, that's a wonderful thing. But when they're in pain, sometimes, you can feel their pain, but don't just cry about it and feel sad or what a sad world it is. See if there's something you can do to help them. Even small things. Just because I was talking about India pilgrimage. On the first pilgrimage we did, they took us over to Benares to see the Ganges River. Nothing Buddhist about that, but okay, we'll do this because that's part of the plan. So, and on the way back from the Ganges River to the bus, we were walking through this very poor part of Benares, Varanasi, and all the lepers came out, just to in bandages and stuff, and asking for money. Now, of course, as a monk, Buddhist monk artist, we don't have money. We don't have cash or anything we can give. But of course, how can you explain that to a leper, who's just really struggling and in pain? And so all I did, well, what else can you do, was put my arm around him and gave him a hug. And what really blew me away was just the gorgeous smile he gave me. I got this smile which I don't see in any of you here. His was much deeper and more joyful, more natural. And I said, that's all I can give you. He didn't understand a word of what I was saying. But I felt really taught by him. He told me, even though you may be just in pain and just in a difficult situation, you don't get any money, but just to get a good smile. That was wonderful. Anyway, from the US, who's this D. Trump, how do Buddhists... That's just to wake you up. Please excuse me, whoever this is, Mr. O'Boyle. How do Buddhist principles of non-violence, precept number 1, right action, Dhammapada 129, 130, ahimsa, etc., fit with the context of military service? Someone asked me this question when I was over in Margaret River, and I said that this young man was drafted into the Thai army, and they were still fighting there. Oh no, this was actually in the Thai retreat. They're still fighting over there on the borders. They don't make it public. But anyway, that he said, I'm a Buddhist. I don't want to sort of kill anybody or fight anybody. What should I do? And the Ajahn Chah said, you have to join up. That's your duty. You have to do your 2 years service for the military in Thailand. There's no other option. And when you're there, train really well. Especially train really mindfully when you do your rifle training. Because I want you to be such an accurate shot that when you see the enemy, you'll always shoot over their head. And you never hit them because you're such a good shot. And that was Ajahn Chah's solution. It's innovative because, who knows, no one gets blamed for keeping on missing the enemy. So figure out the guy doesn't want to be in the army. Oh, actually, that's the same guy from Palestine again. Okay, why not? I want to love people and make friends, but I can't help but believe that people are inherently evil. No. Am I evil? Look, all the people here, there's some beautiful people. Wonderful thing is you give people a chance. If you see the good in them, they see the good in themselves. And the good grows, and they become amazing beings. That's again what happened every time I used to go in prison. Some of the stuff which prisoners did with one another was gross, or with other people. But then you saw the good in them, they saw the good in themselves. And they became amazing people. Some of them became monks. From Penang, I find it challenging to meditate every day, although I know it's important in aiding the ending of suffering. How can I help to improve my virya, energy? I think you're trying too much. For me, meditation is just relaxing. It's like eating. I eat it every day. I enjoy it. So I meditate every day. It's even better. It's food for my mind. And if you don't sort of meditate, you might have lots of food for the body, but not food for the mind, and it makes you sick. Honestly, how sick am I? I'm 70 years of age now and still pretty healthy. Caroline from Hong Kong. Dear Ajahn, last question. How I've been shunned by others since young, and even now I feel so isolated. I find it hard to love myself. What can I do? One thing you can do, because I have to do this, because being a monk, some of you might love to hug me. Can I give you a little hug, Ajahn Brahm? You can't do this against our rules. And people get really upset, and these days you might catch something, COVID stuff. So I figured out, I thought I'm really missing out on hugs in my life. So I figured out a way I can hug myself as much as I like. You want to try? Yeah, come on. Oh, come on, everybody, give it a try. It's okay to be stupid. It actually works. No one's looking at you. You really get into it. And honestly, I've taught that to some people, especially teenage girls, and they do it, and they find actually it's wonderful. They feel a little bit more comfortable. At least they can feel what it's like to have a nice big hug. And no one can love you as much as yourself. So anyway, shunned by others, well, it might be a good thing. Sometimes I wish I was shunned by others a bit more, and I can go to bed early. Sorry. So those are little things you can do. And a little bit more meditation, loving kindness meditation, love yourself. And it doesn't matter if people shun you, as long as you don't shun yourself. That's most important. And then when you don't shun yourself, you find out, when you learn how to love yourself, other people just like to love you too. It's really weird. I'm 70 years old now, fat and ugly and old. Come on, be truthful. And now, women give me many more flowers than they've ever done before. That's what I thought, but I said, no, it's for the Buddha, not me. Okay. Any questions from the floor here before we go away? I'm going on too late. Oh yeah, I forgot. Eddie, quick one, very quick. Oh, very good, that's enough. No, come on, Eddie, sorry.
You mentioned about crying at the Brahm.
Yeah.
And you mentioned about that guy, who went to retreat, he cried.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of myself,
Yeah.
Yeah, like recalling before I came to Buddhism, okay, yeah. So I went to this, before I came to Buddhism, I went to this temple. There was a big statue of Buddha.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the monk was doing some chanting, and there was like a bowing down of the,
Yeah.
And I was crying.
Yeah.
I keep crying and crying, I cried for maybe 45 minutes, an hour,
Yeah.
Yeah. Then, but while I was crying, my mind, I was thinking I was suffering. I was going through immense suffering, And all those things, I was just trying to enjoy myself. Can't that be,
Yeah.
I had to suffer so much. Yeah. And after that, this thing, okay, I keep going to the temple.
Yeah.
And I changed my lifestyle, everything.
Yeah.
And it's all for the better,
Yeah.
From that, I live a relatively very peaceful life.
Very good.
So looking back, it's just like me going like like previous life of the Buddhist, okay?
Yeah.
I come home, okay? I'm straight, and I come home now.
Yeah.
Okay? And this up me live a very peaceful life.
Yeah. Excellent, yeah.
Share that.
Very good. Simon. Okay, there's a question over there before you. Yeah.
On, yeah. So, what would you say there's a difference between believing in yourself and your abilities, also self-efficacy, and emotional intelligence?
Oh, indeed, yeah.
Are they connected or different?
They are connected because believing in yourself, you can do whatever you want, within reason. It's this amazing thing. When I was a school teacher, there's one kid in my class came bottom in math the year before. And I wanted to find out. He thought he couldn't do math, he was hopeless. And I just gave him extra kindness, extra attention. I just thought, what would happen? he came top the next year. And that just, a little thing proved to me that there's nothing you can't do. But a lot of the time we just think we can't do it. And we hold ourselves back, we believe we can't. One of the monks, he's now a senior monk, I won't say his name, but when he came to Perth, he was a refugee, and his parents, or his grandparents, said he was stupid. And that was something they said to him, and he just took that on board. And so he never went to university. But, having ordained him and trained him, he's just a brilliant monk. He's really intelligent. It's just because he believed what his grandfather said. So the job is to take away all those beliefs and just see what you can do. You surprise yourself. There's so many of the monks, when they come and teach here, they were teaching here during the COVID period when it was locked down, and they gave these really nice talks. Even Venerable Nanda next to me. And they said, no, I can't give good talks. They did. It's hard for me to convince them, but they did. And so that's one of the wonderful reasons why the nuns. Gorgeous teachings. So they can do that. But sometimes, that's why if ever you see any monk, nun, lay person give a talk and it's a good talk, go up and praise them. Because that encourages them. And when you do something good, please accept praise. That encourages you to do it even better next time. It shows you just how much you can do. It's amazing. Okay, I did say that was the last question because I did this last week. 9:23. I never get paid overtime. Okay, so we can finish off now. Thank you for staying for such a long time. So we do the Arahang Samma Sambuddho, then we can go and have a nice, peaceful night. So, I did this last time. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Suakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sawakgo Excuse me, I'm tired. Who's yawning?